Welcome to the Sports on Tap NEO High School Football Show. Be sure to join the conversation by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Use the hashtag SOT HSF. Here are your hosts, Rob Trump, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
Welcome to Sports on Tap. It's our Ohio High School football coverage. It's our Week 10 game recaps here on Sports on Tap. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Josh Jeffy, Edick, Sean Duffy here live from Studio J. And it's unbelievable. The season is starting
wrap,
to
homie.
wind down.
It's a wrap.
I mean, Week 10 in the books now, and
Talking playoffs, boy.
I know, that's right. We'll tell you all about the teams that make the playoffs, the matchups in our conferences, which is the Greater Cleveland Conference, the Suburban League, and the Greater Cleveland Conference. We'll go over all of those here tonight on the show. Give you also, obviously, the game recaps, but talk a little bit about the playoffs and get involved in that. But, guys, Week 10 has ended. We know what teams have made it, what teams were left out. Any thoughts on that before we get into the Greater Cleveland Conference, the game recaps with Josh?
A couple of heartbreakers for me. I mean, I had a legit I'll get to it in my recap, but some definite surprises in there that I had some teams penciled in to make it, and they didn't. And
yeah.
You know, it's just the way the ball bounces, I guess.
It's a good thing you used a pencil
Yep.
instead of a pen.
Yep.
Cue the crappy cliche.
Wah, wah. I was going to use a crayon, but
Yeah.
you know,
Couldn't find
I only
those.
had pink, and it's a
Well, they don't teach cursive anymore. I'm surprised they even have crayons at this point.
Yeah, really.
I mean, listen, you want to de-stress, do a coloring book. It actually works, believe it or not.
There you go.
Yep.
Sean's wisdom of the day.
Yep.
Brought to you by
RRT Productions.
Perfect. Josh, do you have any thoughts? You're going to get right into the Greater Cleveland Conference.
Yeah, I can get right into it if you.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you'd
All
like.
right.
I mean,
Someone
Week 10.
came here ready to work.
then I will get my thoughts out.
There you go.
And Rob, it's good to have you back. You have no idea.
Hey, you guys sounded great, by the way.
Yeah,
Ed,
sure.
great job on the SWC recaps. I
Thanks,
mean,
man.
it flowed very nicely. I mean, I know reading my stuff is probably different than reading yours, so it can throw you for a loop sometimes.
And all I'll say is for your sake, we're glad that we didn't have a camera looking at Ed's face as he was reading your recaps.
I would also like to say that everything sounds better on take two, right? I think we can all agree take two is probably our best take of the day.
That's all right. It was the best take, and you got it done.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thanks. All right, on to Week 10 of the GCC. With the exception of one game, which we'll get here in a few minutes, the contests were pretty much not contests at all. It was one team that showed up, and the other team in these matchups had a difficult time. We're going to start off with our first game of the week. Menor came out with a 48-0 victory over Elyria. Menor was actually up 34-0 after the first quarter. Varney Spansel rushed for 3 touchdowns in this one, and Ohio State recruit offensive tackle Ryan Jacoby actually had a touchdown reception in this game. Menor did go on again to win this one, and they are actually co-champions of the GCC this year. They are the number 1 seed in Division I Region 1, and they will actually host another GCC team in this first round of the playoffs coming up this weekend as they host a number 8 Strongsville. Now, Elyria finishes the season without a victory. It's the first time since 1911 that they finished the season without a win, and this year was just not a good year. They lost every game by at least 23 points this year. So,
Wow.
one positive note for Elyria, they can only go up from here.
True that.
In the other game in the GCC, the other co-champion of the Greater Cleveland Conference, Euclid, came through with a 40-0 victory over Shaker Heights. This game was held last Saturday. Euclid held Shaker to 22 yards of total offense and 1 first down throughout the whole game. Quarterback Dion Valentine in this game was 9 of 13 for 202 yards and 4 touchdowns. He actually had 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers in this one. It was 33-0 at half, and then Euclid just kind of went on cruise control the rest of the game. This is the 4th consecutive year with a playoff berth for them. They will actually host the playoff game as they are the number 3 seed in Division I Region 1, and they will host number 6 Austintown Fitch. As we mentioned before, Strongsville is in the playoffs this year. They had a 45-0 victory over arch rival Brunswick in this one, and the game started off with a Joey Gillette 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. In this game, Strongsville had 4 different players that had rushing touchdowns in this one. This one, all Strongsville in this one. And, just kind of a side note, as 3 out of 4 of us are Brunswick alums, this game has little extra meaning for us, but the last 2 years has not been kind to Brunswick. They have been outscored by Strongsville 86-0. So have that.
Yikes.
Yeah, have that for a little. Again, as for Elyria, Brunswick has nowhere to go but up in this one. They've got some good young players in the pipeline, so hopefully things will improve for them. Strongsville, as we mentioned, the number 8 seed in Division I Region 1, they will travel to Menor for the first round of the playoffs. And the final game in the GCC was the best one of the week. Medina comes through with a 27-24 upset victory over Solon. Now, Medina came out really powerful, really strong in this one. They were up 14-0 early into the second quarter. Ryan Fisher had 2 touchdown passes early on for the Bees. Then Solon went on to score 17 unanswered points in the second half to go into the locker room at halftime up 17-14. There was only 1 score in the third quarter. It was on a Ryan Fisher 1-yard TD run. A key thing here, the extra point was blocked, so it was 20-7 at the end of 3. In the fourth quarter, R.J. Howard for Solon had a pick 6 Ryan Fisher interception there to have Solon go up 24-20. Then finally, with 1:26 left, Nick Chester for Medina caught a 7-yard pass from Ryan Fisher, and that put the Bees up 27-24. Solon did have enough time. There was a big sack on 3rd and 11. Pat McQuaid went down, and then they had one more attempt. 4th down, Hail Mary at the end of the game. They could not convert on that one, and Medina comes away with a 27-24 victory. Now, with this victory, they were really close to that final playoff spot in Division I Region 1. They were actually, let's see how many points. They were actually a 1/10 of a point away from that final spot. So some positives for Medina, even though that is kind of heartbreaking to end the season without making the playoffs being that close. They did win 3 games in a row to end their season, all conference wins. They actually finished, if you'd stand by for 1 minute, they finished 3-4 in the conference. So they were actually 0-4 in the conference at one point, rattled off 3 victories in a row, and that's a positive sign. Some other quick notes, again, just to rehash. Menor and Euclid GCC champs this year. Solon finished second with a 5-2 conference record, but 4 teams out of the GCC did make the playoffs. Solon will host, Solon's number 4. Solon will host number 5, Canton McKinley, in their first round matchup. For this one. Now, my player of the week for the GCC will be Medina quarterback Ryan Fisher. He was 25 of 48 for 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So a very good week for Medina among the other teams that we had. Menor, Euclid, and Strongsville in this one all getting geared up for the playoffs.
Yeah, Medina, huge win.
Yeah.
Very competitive. We talked about this last week, how close it was going to be for that last spot in Division I, Region 1. The first 7 spots had been locked out. It was just a matter of seeding. But a couple things went Strongsville's way. One, they utterly destroyed us. I will not comment on that game at all. Medina had a couple things that needed to happen for them. Most importantly for them, what needed to happen was well, never mind. I'm not going to get to that yet. That's going to flow into what we have going on later. But Medina needed some help. They did not get it. Cleveland Heights did lose to Maple Heights, which did help their cause out a little bit. And then Massillon Jackson also lost as well. So you had a couple of things that helped Strongsville and Medina out, but there's one specific thing that we'll get to later that needed to happen for Medina that did not happen that potentially kept them off of the playoffs. So
that's a teaser right there.
You
want to listen.
Credit to the GCC. I mean, I do, given they make up at least a third, maybe a little bit more than a third of that region, but 4 teams make the playoffs out of that, and 3 of them are hosting. Really shows the strength of that conference, not only within the conference, but what they did outside the conference. I mean, Menor taking out Eds and Ignatius and being able to, by a far margin, clinch that number 1 spot. And they're going to avoid Eds and Ignatius until the regional championship. So that big non-conference work there by Menor. Euclid's going to have a tough one against Austintown Fitch. Luckily, Austintown gets to come up to Euclid. You don't want to go to Austintown, I'll tell you that right now. Weird things go on down there. It's just it's a very I mean, we've been down there a couple times just for week 2, and it's crazy down there, just for a week 2 game. I can't imagine what the playoff atmosphere is like. I do imagine it as kind of like a Friday Night Lights type of deal where the whole city shuts down to go see one of their best teams in that Youngstown area play. Youngstown football is very, very huge down there, and I think the last thing you want to do is go down there for a playoff game. And then Solon and McKinley. That's just as I think Rob said. I mean, that's just going to be a great matchup. I mean, both teams are coming off of tough Week 10 losses. McKinley lost to their big rival, Massillon Washington, and they're going to be looking to get back on the winning side. But traveling up to Stewart Field and Solon's no easy task either. And as cool as it is to play in the Hall of Fame, you'd rather have a playoff game at home if you can.
Yeah, and you look at Region 1 here. It's Region 1. Yes, not one thing. Region 1. It's just telling how good the GCC is and how well represented it is. You got 4 teams in, 3 hosting, and Strongsville is no slouch at 8. Now, I think it's a different dynamic if they were playing a team that's not in their conference. I think Strongsville may not have a lot to lean on, but they've played Menor before. They know what Menor can do. They have film on them, so. We always, that old adage, especially when it comes to playoffs in Northeast Ohio, if you face a team for the second time with playoff, moving on the line, you tend to have a little bit more comfort level with your preparation. You know what I mean? There's familiarity there for the coaching staff. They understand what Menor is. They understand what they did wrong against Menor, and they understand, maybe how they can fix it. Now, granted, Menor is, I think, by all accounts, head and shoulders above, is the best team in this division. I would argue in the state at this point.
Solon would have something to say about that,
right? But I would say that. But I mean, right now they've separated themselves. They are the number 1 team, and last year they came in kind of as an underdog. So they've switched that role a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see how Menor responds to having now the expectation to go deep into these playoffs. I mean, I'm sure it's there every year, but even more so now because you're not having, like you said, you're not having to face St. Ed's or St. Ignatius, whoever wins that matchup, till the end at this point in time, until the regional finals. So Menor has an opportunity here to really make some noise, and so does Solon, obviously.
Yeah, maybe they'll surprise some
Euclid's
people.
Like, I agree with you. Euclid's got to play Austintown Fitch. That's a tough place to go play. Or wait.
No, they're hosting.
Yeah, they're hosting. I'm sorry.
You don't want to go down there.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, but yeah,
Austintown's a tough out.
It's a tough out. Yeah,
they're always a tough out.
So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Euclid does in the playoffs. We've seen them kind of play again. We covered their game I think a couple years ago when they played St. Ed's at St. Ed's, and they kind of they looked a little bit lost in the lights a little bit, but anyone would against St. Ed's in the playoffs. But it's good. That's an interesting lineup, and
a lot of great matchups.
Again, the GCC is well represented in these playoffs this year.
The big thing with Menor right now is the health of quarterback Ian Kipp. He has not been playing the last couple of weeks, and Strongsville, they are, as Sean talked about earlier, I mean, they're a tough team. Their only 3 losses are to Menor, Solon, and Euclid. They get to see Menor a second time, and if Ian Kipp isn't healthy enough to go, you're going to go with Florian as the quarterback, which he's done a very, very good job. But optimally from the Menor side of things, you want Ian Kipp in there, so you move Florian back out to the receiver spot, and then continue to pound Brian Trobel up the middle and keep that running game going. And so we'll see if we'll see what the health of sophomore quarterback Ian Kipp brings to the table for that 1-8 matchup.
Well, plus with Strongsville too, this is their first time in the playoffs in a few years. So I think for most of these kids that are playing right now, it's their first trip to the playoffs. So
10 years.
Yeah. So
wow.
I mean, it's been a while for Strongsville, so that's going to be a big. Kind of a big factor to get over. Lou Sereno's been in the playoffs before, but not with this team, not Division I. So this is a new thing for them, and they got to go in against Menor, and Menor's got that experience for sure.
Yeah, and Solon, they fell to Medina, but they have the experience and they've been in the playoffs. So I look for them to, maybe make a little noise. They got a tough matchup with Canton McKinley, but I feel like, they've had a lot of tough matchups this year. None gets bigger than Menor in Menor when they just decided, let's go for the win, and they got it. I think that's a confidence booster. And going into these playoffs, I mean, knowing that you beat Menor, I think you can look forward, and we'll see what they can do in these playoffs as well. So great job, Josh, and we'll see what the Greater Cleveland Conference can do in the playoffs.
Did you cover your player of the week?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Wow.
Just stick to your Buckeye recap. We'll be good.
Man.
I was making sure I had the Buckeye recap written down, and
Yes, just for clarification, it was Medina quarterback Ryan Fisher.
Okay.
The other matchup, real quick, in Division I, Region 1, is Ignatius and Eds. We don't need to talk about that game, honestly, because it's a rematch of the Holy War from last week. It will be played at Byers Field this week, as opposed to First Energy Stadium. Obviously a big game there. There will be plenty of coverage on that from other mediums.
I'm sure, yeah. That always gets a ton of coverage. All right, guys, we'll move on. Week 10 in the Southwestern Conference, and, there were some teams looking to try to sneak into the playoffs. They needed a win. Would they get it? We'll first start with Avon Lake as they traveled to Midview. And Avon Lake, they're coming off their first loss, but with a win, they could have a share or win the SWC title, depending what Avon would do, which we'll get to shortly here. But the Avon Lake defense, they made a statement early and often in this game. They finished with 7 sacks on Midview quarterback Andrew Gooch, and the Shoremen forced a 3-and-out on 5 of the Middies' 9 drives, including 4 of 6 in the first half as they opened a 31-point lead in this game. Midview's offense, they only had 12 yards of offense in the first half. And for Avon Lake, it was running back Connor Riggs who had a big day, and he couldn't be stopped much on this day, running for 234 yards on 23 carries and 3 touchdowns. Let's give Avon Lake's offensive line credit. They wanted to establish the run, and they dominated up front that Middies defense. And Avon Lake, they finished the season in the win column with a 45-7 win over the Middies. So the Shoremen improved to 9-1, 8-1 in conference, as Midview finishes their season at 1-9, 1-8 over in the conference. As Avon Lake, they will continue their season as the number 4 seed, and we'll go over the matchups of these games at the end of where they'll be in the playoffs. But Avon Lake, obviously, one thing that the coach said was they wanted to establish the run to get Connor Riggs going, and they definitely did that against Midview. We'll head to Avon now, where this was a big game. Berea Mid-Park traveling to Avon, and Avon is looking to continue their winning ways, and they want a share of the SWC title since they lost to Avon Lake earlier in the season. And let's put it this way, I don't know if the defense showed up in this game, as there was 124 points between the two teams in this game, and Avon had 770 yards of offense. But the Eagles' defense, they had trouble figuring out the Berea Mid-Park offense. It was a back-and-forth game for most of the game, as Avon scored after recovering an onside kick, and they led 28-14 at one point in this game. But it was Berea Mid-Park senior Garrett Wake catching a 68-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Trevor Bazinski on the Titans' next play from scrimmage. It was 28-21 Avon, and at half, Avon did extend their lead to 35-21. And in the second half, the Eagles outscored Berea Mid-Park 42-26 in the second half, and that led to a 77-47 win for the Avon Eagles. The Avon team improves to 9-1 overall, 8-1 in conference, as Berea Mid-Park closes their season at 5-5, 5-4 on the season, and Avon is set for the playoffs as they are the number 3 team in Division II Region 6, and they will play a home game against Holland Springfield, and we'll go over all the matchups there. Some stats of note for Berea Mid-Park, it was quarterback Trevor Bazinski. He threw for 407 yards and 6 touchdowns on the day. For Avon, it was running back Nick Parasek. He rushed for 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and quarterback Ryan Malloy rushed for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he passed for another 214 and had 4 touchdowns on the day for Avon. So Avon with an impressive win at 77
That's a basketball
47.
score.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw the score. I had to look twice. It was a close game really throughout, back and forth, and then eventually Avon just in the second half kind of got away from it a little bit.
Avon was able to stop Berea Mid-Park maybe twice, 3 times, and then
that's all
score
it
every time
took.
they touched the ball.
I think so. That's all it took in that one.
Whew.
But next, it was Olmsted Falls, and this was a big game as they traveled to North Olmsted. And North Olmsted, they needed a win to have a chance to make the playoffs. And for Olmsted Falls, they did something that they usually don't do, and that's pass the ball. Early on in this game, the offense in the first quarter was Bulldogs quarterback Teddy Grodzinski. He went 98 yards for a touchdown, and a few possessions later, it was Grodzinski connecting with a wide-open Braden Galaska for 74 yards as they took a 14-point lead. It was 21-7. Olmsted Falls in this game. But North Olmsted, they would stay close, scoring on a 12-yard touchdown run by running back Darren Anders, as it was 21-14 Bulldogs at one point. Olmsted Falls, though, they always seem to have an answer in this game, as Grodzinski again connected with Braden Galaska for another touchdown, and then they connected with Michael Howard before half. Olmsted Falls, they opened up a 35-14 lead going into halftime, and they didn't stop there, scoring 21 unanswered points. And what was a close game ended up getting to be a blowout as Olmsted Falls defeats North Olmsted and knocking out their chances to make the playoffs 56-14. Olmsted Falls, they improved to 8-2, 7-2 in conference as North Olmsted ends their season at 5-5, 5-4 in conference. And Olmsted Falls, they get that number 5 seed in Division II Region 6, and they make the playoffs for the 4th consecutive year. For Olmsted Falls, it was Teddy Grodzinski, and what a game he had passing. He was 7 of 9 passing for 242 yards while adding 128 yards on 7 carries on the ground. He had 6 touchdowns overall, 5 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown on the day. Braden Galaska, the wide receiver, he totaled 160 yards in this game for 3 catches, and all of them were touchdowns in the game for Olmsted Falls. All right, 2 more games. It was North Ridgeville traveling to Lakewood, and North Ridgeville looking to close out their 2018 season on a winning note. And North Ridgeville, they jumped out with a Cade Riley touchdown, and after their first touchdown, they really didn't look back in this one as Jacob Dunstan, who we haven't heard of much this year, he had 3 touchdowns for North Ridgeville, as Matt Steinmetz had 3 touchdowns and Cade Riley finished with 2. As North Ridgeville, they had a 56-0 halftime lead, and they would roll in this game to a 56-13 win, closing out their season at 4-6 overall, 4-5 in conference, as Lakewood falls to 1-9, 1-8 in conference. For Lakewood, it was DJ Jackson that scored 2 touchdowns for the Lakewood Rangers as they close their season again at 1-9, 1-8 in conference. Amherst, they travel to Westlake, and Amherst, they're looking out to close their year. They're right there, but they weren't going to get too many computer points in this one or second-tier points going up against Westlake, so they're going to fall just short of the playoffs. And that didn't stop Kenny Scagliazzo from scoring 5 touchdowns in this game as Amherst jumped out to a 27-7 halftime lead, and they would score 28 unanswered points and roll to a 55-7 win. Amherst, though, did finish strong at 6-4 on the year, 5-4 in conferences. Westlake falls to 1-9, 1-8 on the year. And my player of the week in the Southwestern Conference is Olmsted Falls quarterback Teddy Grunzinski. He only threw the ball 9 times, and he completed 7 of them for 242 yards. And then he also rushed for 128 yards on 7 carries, had 6 touchdowns, 5 of them passing and 1 rushing. He only threw 9 times, and he threw 5 touchdown passes. So that's, Olmsted Falls said they saw something in North Olmsted, and they take what they can get there. I'm interested to see what they do going into the playoffs. Is that going to throw some teams off to think maybe these guys can pass a little bit more? Are they going to run strong like they usually do? We'll wait and see. But, looking at some of the matchups there, it's going to be the number 8 Toledo St. John's Jesuit at 7-3. They will travel to the number 1 seed Toledo Central Catholic, who is undefeated at 10-0. And then how about this? The number 7 Parma Heights Valley Forge made the playoffs at 6-4, and what a great season for them to make it. They've really come a long way, Ed.
Yeah, congratulations to Coach Marcello DeAngelis. He's a Valley Forge grad. I played a little bit of ball with him at Mount Union. Took over that program a couple of years ago. Made some good strides last year, and they're a big part of that team is them be able to bring one of their best players transferred back from Benedictine to play for Valley Forge, and he's been a major contributor to their team there. So Coach DeAngelis being able to get someone to come back home and play for their home school. It's not something you see very often. Like a kid leaving a parochial school to come back to their home school. So that was a big addition. In addition, not taking anything away from the rest of the team, but that certainly helped out their cause. And we got to see that up close and personal earlier in the season when Valley Forge beat us. But this is the first time they've made the playoffs since 2002.
Wow!
So by far the longest drought in this. Out of all the playoff qualifiers this year. So congratulations to the Patriots at Valley Forge. I'll be definitely cheering for them coming up this week.
Yeah, they have a tough contest as they travel to White House Anthony Wayne. They're the number 2 seed, and they come in at 10-0. So that's going to be no easy feat. But, the way Valley Forge has been playing this year, anything can happen.
Well, they got that option offense, too. So, you have to it's a hard offense to prepare for in 1 week. And I'm not sure if White House Anthony Wayne has seen something like that. So they'll have to digest that tape and see if their talent can overcome the scheme and the talent of Valley Forge. Back to the 1-8 matchup real quick. This will be a rematch of last week's game. Just like St. Ed's and St. Ignatius, St. John Jesuit and Toledo Central Catholic played in Week 10. Central Catholic with a 27-0 victory. They're gonna turn right around and play each other again, same venue. So we'll see if anything different if St. John's Jesuit can glean anything from that loss and try to apply it here.
Yeah. I was looking at the breakdown here, and all eyes are pointing here to the Avon Lake Olmsted Falls matchup, the 4 and the 5. That was in season. That was a 31-34 game. It was a close game going in there, and Olmsted Falls was able to eke it out. You got to wonder if Avon Lake. That spoiled Avon Lake's perfect season and chance to own the Southwestern Conference crown. So not only is their playoff, lives on the line, but maybe a little bit of revenge there for the Shoremen over Olmsted Falls. And Olmsted Falls is a team that prides itself on ball control, prides itself on good solid defensive play, and that's how they beat Avon Lake. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup to follow on Friday night. If you can't get out to that game, try to score a stream, follow that game, because I'm interested to see how that game plays out, because this is the second time they played each other, and the first time was probably one of the better games of the year in the Southwestern Conference.
Yeah, and it was at Olmsted Falls, so now Olmsted Falls will go on the road and face the number 4 Avon Lake at 9-1. The other matchup is the number 6 Holland Springfield. They come in at 7-3, and they travel to the number 3 seed, the Avon Eagles, and they're 9-1. Their only loss is to a very good Avon Lake team. So there's another Southwestern Conference matchup that you never know what can happen if Avon and Avon Lake can pull it off. But Olmsted Falls and Avon Lake, that's going to be a really good game. Can Olmsted Falls go on the road and pull one off? We'll wait and see. But Holland Springfield, too, is a very good team going into Avon.
And just missing the bubble there, Amherst and North Olmsted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, just not able to get over the hump there. The big blow for Amherst was a loss to North Olmsted earlier in the season, a 17-23 loss in Week 8. That was the one that essentially kept them out of getting into the playoffs. If you look at the other teams that they lost to, Olmsted Falls, Avon Lake, and Avon, probably from a talent perspective, even though they took Avon Lake to the limit, those three teams are probably a little bit above Amherst from that perspective. But losing to North Olmsted, turning in a 5-5 season themselves, nothing to shake out there. That ended up being the big blow to their postseason hopes.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see. Like you said, that's going to be an interesting few games to keep an eye on. And there's a lot of great playoff matchups. So you can go to the Ohio High School Athletic Association's website and see all the matchups there. But when we come back, we're going to go over the Suburban League, American and National Division, and see what teams made it out of there. Look at Josh. She's rocking over here. Bringing the jams tonight here from Studio J. We're Sports on Tap. Don't go anywhere. More playoff coverage coming back.
Listen to our shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
For up-to-the-minute info on local high school sports action, including photos, videos, and live updates, be sure to follow Sports on Tap on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.
Are you ready? You think you could tell us what to do? You think you could tell us what to wear? You think that you're better? Well, you better get ready. Bow to the masters. Break it down. Degenerate into something fool. We just got tired of doing what you told us to do. That's a break, boy. Yeah, that's a break, little man. Break it
And
down.
welcome to Degeneration SOT. There it is.
I'm not convinced that the high schoolers now even know who these guys
Probably
are.
not.
No.
They don't.
No,
but
that-
But when we were in high school, we all knew who Generation X was.
Yeah, that's the fun of it.
Yes,
That's
no,
the fun
I
of
agree
it.
with that.
No, we're just in the mood to play wrestling themes today for the show, and
switch it up a
it's
little
our
bit.
show. We can do what we want. So
Switch it up a bit.
If you don't like it, don't listen.
audio courtesy of the WWE, just so we're
That's right.
giving a little.
Yeah, don't
courtesy.
sue us, Vince McMahon.
Yeah, because we don't make
We-
anything
yeah,
up.
you will get
No.
Josh's fold-up table and maybe his Bruins flag.
And the chairs we sit on.
No, the chairs. I'm sorry.
I'll throw in a child. Developmental talent.
I mean, listen, you got twins. You're fine.
Well, hey, if you want to follow our show and where we go, it's at SOT Podcast on Twitter, where we have videos, we have stories. Go to sportsontappodcast.com for those, neosportsinsiders.com as well. If you want to hear this and many of our other shows and interviews that are archived, go to YouTube, where Sports on Tap also is. We're on Instagram as well. But without further ado,
However, if you're looking to sue us, please contact Hugh Jackson at unemployedheadfootballcoachesofamerica.com.
oh, man, he's going there, folks.
Todd
Wow.
Haley.
Still going to get paid, though.
Well, yeah.
That's
Todd
why-
Haley. Todd Haley, acting vice president, offensive coordinator, and director of player personnel.
You know what? People say, I don't think the Browns
Des Bryant
is a great job. I'm like, are you kidding me? I would want that job in a heartbeat, because how many coaches are we now paying to sit at home and do nothing, realistically?
That's
like
true.
4.
That's true.
I mean, and you got some young, good talent, so you might win. But if you don't, here's your parting gift. You can sit at home for 2 years and make millions. Not a bad deal, if you ask me. But without further ado,
Yes, please. No more ado.
let's go over to Ed, who has the Suburban National Division. And, Ed, what happened in Week 10?
Well, the 2018 regular season has come and gone, and just like that, we are looking forward to Week 11. We'll first start in Stowe, Monroe Falls, where the Bulldogs were looking to even their record against a winless Brecksville Broadview Heights squad, otherwise known as
The Bees.
Bulldogs running back Bryce Shepard started the scoring with a 9-yard touchdown run. Stowe then kicked the field goal. However, Bees running back Garrett Kubitz, filling in a quarterback, connected with wide receiver Ronnie Wilson for an 84-yard touchdown pass, cutting the lead to 10-6. Stowe over the Brecksville Broadview Heights.
Bees.
That was not enough to contain the Bulldogs and Bryce Shepard, though, as the Bulldogs go on for a 17-6 win. Shepard doubling as both a running back and a quarterback. He finished with 12 rushes for 65 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had an interception on defense as well. Stowe Monroe Falls, they finished their season at 5-5 overall, 5-2 in conference play. Certainly a tough out in conference play. Unfortunately, they cannot get any non-conference victories to further their cause for the playoffs. Brecksville Broadview Heights, unfortunately, finishes 0-10 for the season. They were winless in the conference. They're their best shot. They've had some tough games over the course of the season. Unfortunately, they were not able to get over the hump. They do have a very young quarterback in Joe Labus, who was hurt for the majority of the year. He will come back next year as a junior, and hopefully they'll get back on the winning side of things. I have no doubt that the Brecksville Broadview Heights program is generally pretty strong. I just think this is one of those bad years for them. Moving on to North Royalton, 3-6 overall, 1-5 in the conference. They travel to Cuyahoga Falls to face the 1-win Black Tigers. They quickly put matters to rest. Running back Simon Antonio rushed for 3 first-half touchdowns to get the Bears out to a 21-0 lead. They set the stage for a 42-12 victory over Cuyahoga Falls. With the win, North Royalton finishes their season at 4-6 overall, 2-5 in the conference. Cuyahoga Falls drops to 1-9 overall, 1-6 in the conference. Cuyahoga Falls did get a victory over Brecksville Broadview Heights to snap their over 20-game losing streak. They just weren't able to get over the hump for the rest of the year. North Royalton as far as their season wrap up is concerned, this is a from their side of things. I would say it's missed opportunities. They had a chance to beat Highland. They played Stowe Monroe Falls and Twinsburg to 7-point games. Really, the only game that they were outclassed in was probably the Wadsworth game. 47-21 loss to Wadsworth. They gave Nordonia all they can handle last year. But I think this team is I mentioned it last year. I thought this team was going to make some strides this year with Joe Marisek coming back as a junior this year. I believe the same thing. He will be a senior next year. I think this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with come 2019. Simon Antonio, I believe, will be a junior. He is the running back. He's the brother of last year's running back, Zach Antonio. And from their side of things, I think their defense needs to be able to stop the run, because that's what teams employed over the course of the year. They were just running the ball to keep Marisek and that offense off the field, and other teams proved to be very successful at it. So I'm looking for big things from the North Royalton Bears in 2019. Now, we did have two games that did have playoff implications. The first was a very high-stakes matchup between Macedonia and Nordonia, 8-1 overall, 5-1 in the conference. They hosted Twinsburg, 5-4 overall, 3-4 or 3-3 in the conference. Nordonia clinched a playoff berth coming into this game, but with a win, they could not only keep themselves in contention for a conference title, but also clinch home field in Week 11. Twinsburg came in just outside of the playoff race in Division II Region 5, and with a win could possibly sneak into the playoffs if they got a little bit of help. Nordonia quarterback Robbie Levac left nothing to chance for the Knights. He completed 14 of 19 passes for 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. He becomes the all-time leading passer in Nordonia Knights history. Julius Jones, man, a great career for Levac so far.
Heck yeah.
Julius Jones caught 4 passes for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Knights leave no doubt. They defeat the Twinsburg Tigers 35-7. The Tigers' only score came on an 80-yard touchdown run from Marvon Jones. Twinsburg falls to 5-5 overall, 4-3 in the conference. They do miss out on postseason play in Division II Region 5. Nordonia improves to 9-1 overall, 6-1 in league play. They are the number 3 seed in Division II Region 5. They will host Painesville Riverside, 8-2 overall in the first round of the playoffs. So congratulations to Macedonia Nordonia qualifying for the playoffs again. This is their first playoff appearance since 2015. So big, congratulations once again to Nordonia. You kind of thought this was going to fester the last couple of years. Levac started as a sophomore a couple of years ago, had a pretty potent offense. They just couldn't put it together on defense. Last year was just a major disappointment from all accounts, and they were sick of losing, and they proved it this year. So looking forward to seeing how Nordonia does in Division II Region 5. The final game on the Suburban League National League slate saw Hudson 3-6 overall, 3-3 in the conference. They traveled to Wadsworth, looking to deny the Grizzlies a second straight 10-0 regular season and then force a tie of the National Division title with the aforementioned Macedonia Nordonia Knights. The Grizzlies did clinch a playoff spot in Division II Region 7 with the win. They would get another game at home. The Explorers were up to the task in the first quarter. Brady Ludwig scored on runs of 10 and 16 yards for a 13-0 lead. Wadsworth had about enough of that. They rattled off 35 unanswered points, starting with a 4-yard touchdown run by Brock Snowball and a 38-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Trey Schaefer to Barrett Labus. Snowball punching in from 7 yards out. Schaefer threw touchdown passes of 9 and 57 yards to Jack Simmons and Labus, respectively. The Grizzlies go on for a 35-13 victory. Wadsworth's Trey Schaefer, he completed just 7 of 8 passing for 151 yards and 3 touchdowns. This week's player of the week is Brock Snowball. He carried the ball 41 times for 234 yards and 2 scores. This all came after he fumbled on his very first carry of the game. Coach Justin Todd said, "You know what? We're putting the ball back in your hands, and you're gonna run roughshod." And that's exactly what happened. So, congratulations to Suburban League National Player of the Week, Brock Snowball. Hudson falls to 3-7 overall, 3-4 in conference play. Wadsworth moves to 10-0 overall. They clinched the outright Suburban League National Division title for the second straight year. The Grizzlies are the number 3 seed in Division II, Region 7. They will host number 6 Worcester, 8-2 overall. This will be a rematch of their Week 2 battle played at Worcester, a tough 37-31 victory for the Wadsworth Grizzlies. So we have 2 teams in postseason play for the Suburban League National Division. 1 team just left out. Macedonia-Nordonia, Division II, Region 5, the 3 seed. Wadsworth Grizzlies, the number 3 seed in Division II, Region 7. If we look at some quick playoff, if we look at Division 2, Region 5 real quick, because I believe that does not involve anybody else in our respective conferences. The matchups there are as follows. First, the number 1 seed and Cleveland.com number 1 team, Akron Archbishop Hoban. They are the 3-time defending state champions in both, accounting for both Division III and Division II. They are the number 1 seed. They will take on 5-5 Mayfield. That game will be at Akron Archbishop Hoban Dowd Field. The 4-5 matchup, Warren G. Harding out of Warren. They are the number 4 seed, 8-2 overall. They will take on Garfield Heights, 10-0. Congratulations to Coach Lance Reisland and the Garfield Heights Bulldogs, completing a perfect regular season. That game will be played at Mollenkopf Stadium in Warren. Anything can happen to this matchup here. Garfield Heights has a very stout defense, but once again, you're going to that Warren, Youngstown, Austintown area. Very, very tough places to play, but Garfield Heights has been up to the task all the way up to this point. So we'll certainly see what happens in that 4-5 matchup. In Region 5, the number 2 seed, Maple Heights, 10-0. They win the Lake Erie League. They had to come from behind to defeat Cleveland Heights, denying Cleveland Heights a playoff spot in Division 1, Region 1. Then also clinching themselves the Lake Erie League title. They will take on Youngstown Boardman, 6-4 overall. They are the number 7 seed. That game will take place at Maple Heights. Shaq Washington, head coach, he is 25 years old. Led the Maple Heights Mustangs to the state championship in 2009. State championship game in 2009. They came up a little bit short against Cincinnati Winton Woods. The following year comes back. They win the state championship in 2010. Shaq Washington becomes the all-time leading receiver in catches in University of Cincinnati history. Unfortunately, due to some lingering leg injuries, he was not able to make his mark on the pro game. Comes back to Maple Heights. Great story there. And then obviously, Nordonia, 3 seed, Painesville Riverside, this number 6 seed, an 8-2 there. We'll see how much more Robbie Levac has in the tank there for Nordonia. He's got the 3 Jones brothers there, Julius, Joel, and I believe Jordan, and those guys are and Niles Beverly as the running back. Lots of weapons there from the Nordonia end.
Yeah, they only lost 1 game, and it was a 35-25 loss to Wadsworth. They've had some close games. I mean, Brecksville didn't win a game this year, but they beat Brecksville by 2 points. Before that, it was Stowe by 2. And you look at Riverside, their 2 losses have come to a 9-1 Kenston team, 42-14, and a 9-1 Perry team, 28-14. They've really only had 1 win against a really good Chardon team, 28-27. Otherwise, their other wins look like they're against 4-6 and 2-8 teams. They did beat Mayfield, who's 5-5, 14-8 last week, and they've won 3 in a row. But they're getting the wins when they need to. That Chardon win was huge, but what are they going to do when they face a really good, fundamentally sound Nordonia team that's 9-1? Seems like they struggle with a little bit of the better teams.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, Rob. I mean, the record speaks for itself. If it wasn't for Chardon beating Kenston, I don't think Riverside gets in. That win from Chardon to Kenston both got Chardon in and it got Riverside in. In addition to Kenston also making the playoffs out of that respective conference. I will quickly just talk about Wadsworth in Division II, Region 7, because I know Sean is going to have a little bit to say about that specific region. They will be taking on Worcester. Very, very tough matchup there. Worcester gave them all they can handle back in Week 2. That game was at Worcester. This game will be played in Wadsworth. at Arkwright Stadium coming up here in Week 11. And, in fact, I will now kick it over to my cohort, my compadre, my colleague, in both in the Suburban League and the Division II Region 7 playoffs. Sean Duffy going to talk about the Suburban League American Division.
Thank you, Ed. America. We'll first start off with our one and only out-of-conference matchup, Aurora traveling to Columbus Mifflin. And despite securing a 41-6 victory over Mifflin, Aurora fails to make the playoffs, finishing just outside the top 8 in the 9th position. Again, Aurora wins 41-6. Colin McNamara, Arnold Austin Graham, and even Spencer Obley, the kicker, got in on the scoring for Aurora. In fact, they scored all 41 of their points in the first half. They had a running clock, and that was pretty much all that was said for that game. Aurora finishes the year 7-3, 4-2 overall, and again 9th place in Division III Region 9, just outside the playoff picture. Revere's playoff hopes were long coming into Week 10, but they were dashed by the Talmadge Blue Devils, and the one swing in the sword was running back Rich Ayer, who was absolutely fantastic in this game. He accounted for 300 total yards from scrimmage. He had 17 carries for 195 yards, 4 receptions for 141 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he even threw a touchdown pass in this game just for good measure. Quarterback Sam Seeker added 167 yards in a rushing touchdown, and Revere unfortunately falls 41-25. They were led by quarterback Nathan Klanowski, who went 15 for 26 with 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matt Busser had 7 receptions for 136 yards and a touchdown. Revere finishes the season 6-2 and 2-4. They finished 12th in Division III Region 9. And Talmadge finishes on an upswing at 5-5 and 2-3. They finish 15th in Division III Region 9. Copley traveled into Roosevelt to end their season, and they ended their season on a good note, winning 48-26. Copley had this game in control from the beginning. It wasn't really much of a matchup. Roosevelt ended up scoring a couple of touchdowns late to make it interesting. Unfortunately, by this point in time, we had a running clock. Roosevelt finishes the year 2-8, 0-6, and they finished in 14th place in Division II Region 5. Copley finishes the year 3-7, 1-5, and they finish in 15th in Division II Region 5. We'll get to the big game on the slate, the American Division Championship between Barberton and Highland. This game was fantastic by all accounts. Well done job by Josh and Rob, who were out there braving the cold, the rain, the muck, the mud, and some Gatorade, I imagine, was being thrown around at some point. I don't know. I may have seen that on some social media. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and pick my player of the week, and that's got to be Rich Ayer. The guy had 300 yards from scrimmage, 3 touchdown receptions, and he even threw for a touchdown pass. Congratulations to Rich Ayer. Had a great season all year. He was in the mix for player of the week almost every week. He was one of the guys, along with Sam Seeker, that really kept Talmadge in a lot of games they may not have been in otherwise. So that's it for the player of the week in the American Division. Rob, I'm moving on to the Buckeye recap. I know you're very excited about this, and you want to make sure, so listen up. Buckeye recap coming right at you in 3, 2, 1. Buckeye traveled into Brookside, and they were able to secure home field advantage. A home playoff game with a 41-10 dismantling of Brookside. They were led by Anthony Watkins, who got playing time because running backs Armando Nye and Dom Monaco were not playing due to minor injuries. I think this was more of a preventative measure to have those guys fresh for their playoff matchup, because going into last week they had already sewn up a playoff spot and pretty much were guaranteed a home game one way or the other. You'd rather have those guys fresh and 100% than not. But Anthony Watkins told 8 carries for 117 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jacob Durkee had also added in 4 carries and 35 yards, and he was 3 of 4 passing. Buckeye finishes 9-1. They are 5-0. They win the Pac Stars division outright. Their last Pac Stars division title as they're moving on to the Great Lakes Conference. They finished 3rd in Division III Region 9. They will host the Alliance Imposter Aviators at home in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
I try to maintain objectivity as a faux journalist, as a fake journalist. Not here. Buckeye, beat these Aviators and make them change their name. That should be part of the issue. They should have a name change on there. There should only one Aviators.
Is there a former Super Bowl winning quarterback that used to go to Vandalia? Because that one did go to Alliance.
Yes, in fact, there is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Josh Betts, the backup quarterback to Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. Boom, he's got a ring. He didn't play.
How about Hall of Famer Len Dawson?
Okay, I mean, okay. Well, I mean, hard to argue.
I could tell by Ed's face.
I didn't know he was bringing out the Mount Rushmore of early Super Bowl quarterbacks.
I could tell by Ed's face that he was planning
on
putting
waiting for me
that in.
He was so waiting.
It's like where there's cheese in a cage. He was waiting for him to just get ready to go.
Because as soon as you mentioned real Aviators, he perked up. And he was.
Were they always called the Aviators?
Yes.
I maintain that because Vandalia actually wasn't. They were the Bulldogs for a long time. So.
So it's on
and here it comes. Here we go.
Now the interesting thing I want to get back, as I mentioned,
Alliance just has one name though, the Aviators. Just one.
And we are the Vandalia Butler Aviators.
Now that I can
township.
safely say that my education at Mount Union, besides the lifelong friends that I made in the national championship ring I have, has been made complete by its entire exchange.
All right, fine.
4 years in Alliance really paid off.
Yeah. Is that your advanced degree?
Yeah.
All right.
Still paying on that shit.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Hey, listen. For all you high school kids out there, you're going to know the pain of student loans. That was an actual legitimate reaction to student loans. Just a quick
We
note.
all feel your pain, Ed. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Just a quick note on the American division. I came into Week 10 with 3, possibly 4 teams that all had a chance to make the playoffs, and the only team to get through was Barberton, thanks to what we'll talk about in the game of the week. But, Revere and Aurora Revere was a long shot, so to speak, but Aurora was in as of Week 9, and they were on the cusp of it, and you would have thought just a big win over Mifflin would have helped them or maintain, I think, the 8th position. So, a tough loss in a win there, and I think it had to do a lot with their losses to Solon and Highland and Barberton on the year.
I would agree with that. If Twinsburg was somehow if Twinsburg would have defeated Nordonia, that would have certainly given them a lot more points too, because they fell.
They fell one spot.
There's just under 2/10 of a point. So those level 2 points they may have gained from a Twinsburg victory over Nordonia could have put them into that 8th spot there in Division 3, Region 9.
This is the first year that I've been covering the American division that Aurora did not make the playoffs. Just a final note, and so we're going to go ahead and take a break, and then we're going to come back and discuss the Suburban American Division Championship game between the Barberton Magics and the Highland Hornets. Don't go anywhere.
RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win. Listen to our shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
For up-to-the-minute info on local high school sports action, including photos, videos, and live updates, be sure to follow Sports on Tap on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.
Wolfpack is back, goes on mass destruction. Guess who's here? The bad boys of wrestling. Testing competition, win the war, that's their mission. Not no mercy. See the
I remember when I was part of this group. We're Sports on Tap. It's our Week 10 game recaps. Went over the
Wolfpack.
Greater Cleveland Conference, the Southwestern Conference, and the Suburban League. And now we're going to get to our game of the week and tell you where we'll be at this Friday. But first, you can go to @SOT Podcast on Twitter, SportsOnTapPodcast.com, which is our website, which has stories, it has video, it has pictures, it has scores, and much more from all of our conferences. If you want to hear any of these audio shows where we have Week 1 through 10 interviews and much more, go to our YouTube page. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well. But now we'll go to our game of the week, which took us out to Barberton, Ohio, where the Highland Hornets and the Barberton Magic faced off in what was an absolute outstanding game by both teams. The weather was not cooperating for the most part. It rained all night. It was muddy. It was slick. And I think we saw that, Josh, early on in this game.
Yeah, and we talked about it before the game. You know, there's not a lot of when you get into your bigger time schools. There's a lot of schools now that are actually going to the field turf. And actually, we were talking to Barberton athletic director, and they're actually going to be breaking ground on their new turf field. So that's one of the last games that they're going to be playing on that natural grass surface. So, we were talking how the weather would affect the game. A lot of these kids aren't used to playing on this natural grass now, and it's definitely a different type of game that you have to play. It's definitely the footing is different. So I was curious to see that, and I do believe that it did play a factor in this game.
Yeah, so like you said, it's natural grass, so it was slick, and right away, the Hornets, they actually received the opening kickoff, and we saw it right away. Highland quarterback Jack McGinney, he tried to connect with his receiver, but it was intercepted by Barberton's cornerback Charles Hornacek, as he was able to intercept it and return it to their own 40-yard line. But the Magic didn't do anything with that, but I think right from that point on you could tell that footing was probably going to be a little bit of an issue in this game. And then with 1:43 left in the first quarter, Barberton, they scored first when quarterback Caleb Vega, he went 50 yards for a nice run into the end zone for a touchdown, and the Magics were up 7-0, and this was near the end of the first quarter. You can go to our YouTube page. It shows the actual video highlights, or we had it on SportsOnTapPodcast.com, where you wrote the story and had the video there that showed him running the football. And, I mean, just was able to really read the Highland defense, and he was almost untouched on that play.
Yeah, and it was a good play, and it was a design quarterback sneak, and he went and he took it to the house, and it was a good run by him for sure. And one thing that we were talking, Rob, you and I, during the game is during that whole first quarter, their outstanding running back, Kyrie Young, did not touch the ball once during that first quarter. So they were it was kind of weird and unique.
Surprising
but
a little
it was
bit.
surprising, but as we go through further with the recap, he'll make his presence known for sure.
Yeah, and then Highland, they would answer, though, in the second quarter when Jake Rogers, he went 10 yards to tie the game. And Jake Rogers, they actually kept him in check for most of the night. Obviously, when they punt or kick the football, it wasn't going in his direction for the game.
No, but the Barberton defense did a really good job of really honing in on Jake Rogers when he did get some carries. There was at least two guys, Barberton defenders, trying to make the tackle, and they did a really good job of wrapping their arms around it and really tackling them real low. And they used the lack of footing to their advantage.
Yeah, and one thing that was impressive was Highland's defense, as they forced the Magic to punt on their next possession. But Highland, they would drive down the field, and they were actually inside the red zone when then they threw an interception and turned the ball over as they had a solid drive going. And, I think that's obviously when you're trying to throw the ball and it's wet, they obviously try to keep those footballs dry. We saw all night, but just sailed a little bit on him, and he threw 2 interceptions on the night. But Barberton, they finally got the ball to Kyrie Young here, and it was in the second quarter. He led the Magic down to the 10-yard line. And Barberton, though, they failed to convert on 4th and 6. They went for it. Obviously, kicking a field goal in that situation when it's wet is tough. But they turned the ball over. Highland escaped with no damage done there. And they would take a knee. And at halftime, Josh, it was tied at 7 in this game.
Yeah, it was a hard-fought game in the first half. You can kind of tell that both teams were kind of feeling each other out, looking to see what they could do. And again, I hate to keep harping on this, but I think the weather had a lot to do with it, especially on Highland's end. The weather really kept their offense in check. There was a lot of read option plays from Jack McGinty. There wasn't a lot of throwing of the football. And when you have your star running back, Jake Rogers, pretty much bottled up for the most part in the first half due to the Barberton defense, that meant it was all on Jack McGinty, and he made some good plays, but wasn't able to finish when they really needed to.
Yeah, and it was funny because after halftime, the Magics didn't waste any time.
Big plays.
And, a 62-yard touchdown run by Kyrie Young just over a minute into the second quarter, or second half, rather. And really the rest of the third quarter, they each had 3 possessions, and it was almost at a stalemate, but it was a 14-7 Magic's lead after that Kyrie Young 62-yard touchdown. I think you saw how quick he was, and he's just a guy that's really tall. He runs strong, and he's almost through the first line of defense before you can even turn your head there.
Yeah, he's deceptively fast because he is tall. He's a very tall running back, 6'2". And when you're that big and that strong looking, you really don't get a true idea how fast he is. But not only is he fast, though, he's powerful. And Highland, it did take 1-2 guys at a time to tackle him.
So it was 14-7 after 3 quarters, and again, sophomore running back Kyrie Young decided to make his presence known. And this time it was 9 seconds into the fourth quarter. He went 33 yards. And his second touchdown of the game. The extra point was good, and it was 21-7. Barberton led Highland into the fourth quarter. Now, Highland, they had a bunch of opportunities to score in the fourth quarter, but McGinty, he did hit wide receiver Bryce Profit over the middle. It was a big gain down the field. Then on the run, the Magics were able to force a fumble and a turnover, and again, turnovers were the name of this game, unfortunately, for Highland, who, again, had a really solid drive, and the fumble where the Magics were able to recover. They didn't score from it, but it was a big fumble nonetheless.
Now, this was, I remember thinking at the point of the game where the body language for Highland was, kind of taking a turn towards the worse, and especially after that fumble right on the 50-yard line, and Barberton recovered. But the defense did really step up for Highland, and they were able to force a punt for Barberton. So they weren't out of it yet, but they needed to get some big plays. And as we're going to talk about next, I think Barberton, in my opinion, and I put this in my story, Barberton had a couple questionable play calls there on their next drive, middle of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think it's at a time where they could have probably ran the ball and took some time off the clock. And if you get a first down, then, it's tough for Highland to get back in it. But they decided to pass the ball instead of run, which was intercepted in their own territory by Bryce Profit. And he returned the ball all the way to the Barberton 24-yard line. Barberton, though, they were moving the ball running at one point, but they just, on this series, just passed the entire time. 2
plays in a row after the first one, which ended up being incomplete. I was like, well, okay, maybe they're just trying to see if they can catch Highland off guard. But the second pass play they had in a row, and it wasn't even close. And Profit made a good play, and he was able to go down a 24-yard line. And as we'll talk about, on the very next play, they were able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and it was quarterback McGinty who connected with Profit over the middle for a long touchdown pass, and the extra point was good. So it cut the lead at 21-14 with still 7 minutes left in this game. And at one point, Barberton, they took some time off the clock finally and decided to run the ball. But Highland did get it back with 2:04 left in the game. And then after 2 plays, the Magic's Charles Hornacek intercepted his second pass of the game. And Barberton would escape with a 21-14 win in this game. They go 10-0 on the season, and that's winning back-to-back Suburban League American divisions 2 years in a row. And the Magic, they host that first-round playoff game up. And Highland season, they do just sit on the outside of the playoffs with an 8-2 record, though. And they had a great 2018 season, Ed.
Yeah, you can't. Highland had 2 blemishes, one to Barberton and one to what ended up being a very, very good Medina team. Medina caught fire at the end of the year there. They overhauled their offense and went 5 wide and was just slinging the ball over the place. And that big win over Solon almost propelled them into the playoffs. A Highland win here would have gotten both Highland and Medina into the playoffs. Medina would have gotten more level 2 points than Strongsville got from Brunswick. To be fair, Brunswick didn't really help anybody out this year as far as level 2 points are concerned. So Highland did defeat Brunswick 28-7 in week 1, but with a 1-win team, not a whole lot of level 2 points there for Highland to gain there. North Royalton 4-6. I think Highland would have been served to get a little more points from them, but unfortunately, this was a very, very competitive Region 7. And if they were in their old region, I think I read this in Cleveland.com today. If they were in their previous region, they would be seeded 5 right now in their old region. But due to competitive balance and some realignment of the divisions and the regions, this is just a very, very tough team. This is a very tough one to crack. Massillon, Washington is the number 1 seed. They have 39 points, which is more than Mentor has in Division 1, Region 1.
Wow.
So Massillon, they play an independent schedule. They took down some big teams this year and, secured a ton of points. So that's your number 1 team. Your number 2 team is Barberton. They have 32 points. That would have been number 2 in Division 1, Region 1. And you see that trickle-down effect, which is how competitive this region was. Unfortunately, 8 wins, unless you were Dover, was not good enough to get you into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I look at this and I look at the recap. And first off, great job to both Josh and Rob.
Absolutely.
It was a great
Thank
recap
you.
and a great, obviously a muddy and wet game. This is something that we haven't really seen from Barberton, is where their defense have really had to pick them up over the majority of the year. I mean, Barberton has been an offensive juggernaut since the beginning of the year. I mean, they haven't been in many close games. This is probably their closest game of the year. And again, there were some. I agree with you, Rob, the way you describe it. There were some questionable calls, but I think, as we discussed off air coming in here, I think, the Barberton coaching staff and the Barberton's plan was to not let Jake Rogers beat them, because he's done that all year to teams, and whether it be kicking the ball away out of bounds, whether it's like you mentioned on the defense, bracketing coverage on him when he's going out as a receiver, making sure you had at least 2 hats on him, not letting him get the yard after catches or yard after contacts. That's where he excels. So they did their defense. My hat's off to the Barberton defense, because this was a close game. And yes, I think the weather maybe played a bigger factor than we're giving it credit for. I know you guys mentioned it and you kept mentioning it all night, but Barberton's a fast team, and when they get on a roll, we saw them against Aurora. When they get on a roll and Kyrie Young can get out on the outside, he's gone. It doesn't look like he's very fast, but he's deceptively fast. And and I know Josh mentioned that. So this was a great game, and I'm really and hats off to Highland. They had a great year. They kind of found their way a little bit offensively. Defensively, they've been this all year. They've been very good on the defensive side of the ball. There's no surprise that this was a low-scoring game, probably Barberton's lowest-scoring game of the year, because Highland's defense, while their offense kind of sputtered in spurts here, didn't necessarily allow for games to get out of hand. They were always in these games. Very rarely did you see Highland get blown out in either of their losses. It really wasn't. It was more so of a we stopped them, but we couldn't score enough points, to win. And it wasn't they weren't in a lot of shootouts, so to speak. The North Royalton game probably was, their one and only shootout, I think, of the year, as I'm looking over everything. But, I'm very interested to see Barberton here. They're number 2 seed. They're 10-0. They have the ability to really put it on folks when they play them. I know in that region, McKinley is the team to beat, or Massillon Washington is the team to beat. But I would love in a couple weeks to see Massillon Washington versus Barberton, just the amount of points being put up and the amount of defense in that game.
Yeah, we'll see about that, because Barberton will have to go through Wadsworth first. And
we'll
see what
Wadsworth's got to get past Wooster, and that's
going to be a tough game.
Everyone's got to play a game this week, so we don't know. We've seen this before where
Barberton's got to get past Dresden Tri-Valley. Then
that's true. I agree.
Everyone's got to get past everyone.
But you know what? I mean, it's easy for us to say there were some questionable calls by Barberton, but they could have done that all year, and it just worked for them.
And it would have worked, yeah.
And, I mean, they've had a 10-0 season. Their close game was to Norton in Game 1, where they went to overtime and won by 1.
Mm-hmm.
But, Barberton's they're a fundamentally sound, good team, defensively very active. They have guys everywhere. They know how to tackle. They're not going to – their one thing is to not give up that big play. And I felt like, containing Jake Rogers in this game was huge for them. And they face a very good Tri-Valley Scotties team who's 9-1 on the season. And their lone loss comes to a John Glenn team who's 7-3. And we might not have heard of some of these teams, but, they played Zanesville and got a win. They're a 7-3 team. And they've won a lot of games. Kind of like Barberton, I think their schedule is kind of comparable, where you're going to get a few really good teams and then some teams that have only won one game.
Yeah, their best win right now is a 9-1 win against Sheridan, Division III Regional 11 team. Sheridan did qualify for the playoffs in Division III Region 11. That loss to John Glenn was to another playoff team in Division IV Region 15. John Glenn was qualified as 6th there. So Dresden does have Tri-Valley does have some tough games on their schedule, much like Barberton went through this year as well. And it's there's something about Rudy Sharkey Field, Rudy Sharkey of Alliance, Ohio, longtime Mount Union coach in Alliance. There's something about that field that that is they want to continue to win on that field, especially with their pending change from grass to the new field turf. Barberton's on a roll. There's no other way around it. They've run roughshod through the Suburban League American Division for the last 2 seasons, and they've done it in 2 different ways. This year, last year they had Key Thompson and Zane Reese helped, kind of running the show there.
Yep.
This year they found a sophomore running back who's just a monster, and Kyrie Young. It's just going to be it's
going to be very interesting to see how that team progresses, not only this year but next year and the year after with that kind of talent at running back.
Well, and that's perfect segue from what the coaches we were over here in the Barberton coaches, freshmen, JV, and varsity all went 30-0 this season.
So
and they were talking about
pretty good.
The cupboard's not there in Barberton.
Yeah, they said some of the kids coming through the pipeline and just believing in what they're doing, and you could tell the coaches were really excited about what they've built now and what they have coming up as well.
It should be interesting. I'm curious to see again that I look at the Region 7 as a very top-heavy region. The top 3, I mean, easily any one of these teams could conceivably be a tough out for any team, Division 1 down through 2, and you're looking at this division, just the top 3 teams. It's going to be it's really, I think, going to be probably one of the most interesting regions to watch. Just given the amount of top heaviness from 1 to 3, and I would even throw Dover in there at 8 and 2. Dover's been a tough team all year. I mean, the top 4 there are probably as good as any top 4 Division 1 through 3 at this point.
Agreed. And right now, obviously, teams need to take care of business, but we will. I think there's a strong possibility we'll see a true Suburban League championship game, de facto championship game between Barberton and Wadsworth in week 12. Massillon, Washington is looking for their elusive first ever tournament state championship. They have never won the state tournament. All of their national and state titles are quote-unquote mythical. They're determined by polls before the playoff system was put into place. So as great of a historical program as they are, they have never won a championship on the field through a tournament. So they are still looking for that elusive state championship. Division 2, Region 7 is going to be a tough region there. And if we go back quickly through Division 3, Region 9, where, if I'm not mistaken, Buckeye resides.
Yep, did the recap already.
Oh, great.
So we're good.
We have 9-1 Canfield. The Cardinals are going to host another school from Alliance, Marlington. The Marlington Dukes. Alliance defeated Marlington in their big rivalry game to make the playoffs. But not only that, the Marlington made the playoffs as well. So
it's a great name for a high school, Marlington.
The Dukes. So Canfield will host Marlington in Week 11. Kenston, 9-1 overall. They are going to host Millersburg West Holmes. Kenston's only loss came to a very tough and playoff team in Chardon in Week 9, I believe. Yes. So Kenston's going to host West Holmes. We obviously talked about Buckeye and Alliance. We've covered that already. Buckeye is looking for their first ever playoff victory. And this is their, I believe, their 3rd or 4th shots in a row at home to do so.
Got to get it done at home, Buckeye Bucks.
And then Chardon, who did defeat Kenston in Week 9, they are going to host Akron East, turning in a great 8-2 season. Their only losses are to Dover and Akron Buckdale, both playoff teams, in the Akron City Series. So it's that's going to be a great matchup there. I'm really looking forward to the Buckeye Alliance game because as much as I've been joking about Alliance and with Sean here.
Oh, it's no joke. I'm kidding. Serious.
This is
Change
this is a good. I think this is a good opportunity for Buckeye to get over that hump and make it to Week 12, where they hopefully they'll get their shot at either Kenston or West Holmes in a neutral site.
Yeah, I really think Buckeye is set up. They're playing they have a very good game plan every week. They're just dominating, rushing the ball. They don't pass a lot. They play ball control. They control the line of scrimmage. They get defensively. They don't allow a lot of teams to get over the top of them a lot. I think the one game we covered against Lutheran West, that Lutheran West did have opportunities vertically, but when they needed to make plays, they made plays. So, Buckeye again. Buckeyes had 3 straight playoff home games. Well, this will be their 3rd straight that we've covered. and they've lost the two that we've covered. So we're not we're hoping that the Buckeye Bucks can get off the schneid, so to speak, playoff wise, and once that happens, you'll be amazed to see how that just kind of builds on itself and builds on itself and builds on itself. If I can for a moment, I'd like to go down to Division 3, Region 12.
Deservedly so.
And just kind of lay out what the world looks like in Division 3, Region 12. The number 1 seed, Kettering Archbishop Altar, they will host Cincinnati Mount Healthy, the 8th seed. The Wapakoneta Redskins are the number 2 seed. They will host Trotwood, always dangerous Trotwood Madison. And Franklin Bishop Fenwick is the number 3 seed. They will host Dayton Chaminade Julian from the city of Dayton. Very well known to them. I played them several times in my high school career. And then at number 4, the old Vandalia Butler Aviators will play host.
Numero 2.
Yeah, I mean number 1 in my heart. Number 1 with a bullet. Home of the. We don't have Len Dawson, but whatever. They will play host. They finished. My alma mater finished 6-4. Disappointing loss in Week 10 to Tippecanoe. That's a rivalry school, kind of similar to the Brunswick Strongsville match, but they're about roughly the same distance from each other. But they lost 14-20. However, they were still able to secure a home field advantage, and they will host Hamilton Baden in the playoffs. This is the first time Vandalia Butler's been in the playoffs since I was a sophomore in college.
They're waiting for you to come back, man. They're waiting for a Sean Duffy appearance.
Listen, I floated the idea to my wife. I said, what?
It just floated, didn't it?
Yeah, she did not respond. She did not want me to drive all the way to Dayton to cover that game. I thought about it, and then I was like, I don't really want to drive all the way to Vandalia. Like, good luck. I hope you win, and congratulations.
Way to show your dedication.
I mean, listen, you guys live 20 minutes from your school. I live 3 hours from
It's about 25 to 30.
I mean,
I'm about
collectively.
Ed, what do you think? We're about 4 minutes?
Right, collectively.
Possibly.
You're about 30
4
minutes
if
from
you
your
walk
school.
really.
Traffic.
4 if you walk really
30 minutes
slow.
collectively between the three of you. I'm 3 hours and 30 minutes away.
There you go.
So. But congratulations. Go Butler, go Aviators. I know the community's probably pumped. Haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. But, guys, let's tell the folks here where they can find Sports on Tap in the first week of the playoff coverage. Guys.
But before that, I think Ed has something
Oh, Ed,
to
I'm
say.
sorry.
Yes, unfortunately, not so good news for the folks in Fayetteville. They lost to Bethel Tate 44-14, closing their season out at 5-5 overall. Bethel Tate improves to 4-6. We saw the same thing happen last year. Fayetteville started out hot against against their competition. Once again, the conference play, they go up against some bigger opponents, and they are just as of this moment in time, they're just not. If you ask Coach Finn, they'll say they're not as equipped. I would say they're not as equipped to handle these bigger teams, but I think there is a little bit of a talent discrepancy there, and there's only so much that can happen there. So,
yep.
After a 4-0 start, they finished 5-5, and we'll look for big things to come for Fayetteville next season. So,
yes, sir.
Gentlemen, where are we going next week?
Where are we going, guys? Where do you want to go?
This week.
Well,
It's
we're gonna
Friday.
Yeah,
Friday.
We are going to
Round
make
1.
another appearance to Southern Medina County. We're going to see the rematch, Worcester against Wadsworth.
What you gonna do, Wadsworth?
I'm looking forward to heading down there again. Ed and I were there last year to see a great game, so we're looking to head back there. Sean and I will be down there.
You'll be down there. I'll be in the booth.
Well, we're going to be both in Wadsworth. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good point.
Oh,
But
by the way,
he'll just be in a
Ryan
nice-
Fisher, Player of the Week, GCC.
Thanks.
Just so you know, Todd.
Thanks. Did you get your player of the week out, bud?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great.
Wait,
It's
is anybody going to do the Buckeye recap?
Rob, I've done the Buckeye recap.
Oh, okay.
great atmosphere in Wadsworth.
It is.
Yes,
you guys will need to
great
park
field.
into a field and may or may not have to walk through some questionable wooded area.
That's all right.
However, you will get it's an easier way to go there and walk right over.
We made it last year without breaking an ankle. Close.
There was a
Oh,
hole in the
man.
ground that we successfully avoided in multiple landmines in
So-
the form of branches. But
So
Okay.
should we take a bet on if Sean will or won't break his ankle and fall?
Oh, I'm bringing a goat to to walk me through. If they can get through mountains and stuff, they can get through wooded areas.
You kind of are bringing the goat.
Oh my God!
Wow.
I just had to go there.
Oh,
Just kidding.
all right.
Just kidding.
Folks,
So-
he tries humor every week, and he just
It's going to be a
it's
great
tough
game.
to do.
Hey,
This
you
is
know
a-
what? I'm funny to me.
Huh? You're the only
That's
one.
all that matters.
If we look at something I thought about while we were while I was going through the playoff matchups over the weekend is if you oddly enough if you they were starting with the Greater Cleveland Conference, 4 playoff teams. Southwestern Conference, 3 playoff teams. Suburban League National Division, 2 playoff teams. Suburban League American Division, 1 playoff team.
Oh, wow.
And that's nothing to throw shade at anybody. It was just given that just kind of speaks to the level of competition.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very, very high level competition in Division 1, Region 1, and 4 teams were able to get in there. We saw from the Southwestern Conference, that conference, as we talked about before, is a meat grinder. They beat themselves up, and unfortunately, this is what happens sometimes. Suburban League National Division, there were far and away 2 teams better than everybody else. We saw that prove out as Nordonia and Wadsworth, with 19 wins between them, and Nordonia's only lost 2 Wadsworth. And then with the American Division, you have, that was
I would
just
say 3 teams that are legit.
victim of
that-
circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, Aurora was in, and they just again the losses kind of hurt them, and Highland's the same way. They just did not get the help they needed to get in, and they didn't take care of business when they needed to. And then as far as Highland goes, you can't turn the ball over 4 times and expect to win against a team like Barberton. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. And I think Coach Gibbons would agree with me on that. Obviously, he wouldn't be very happy to agree with me about that, but it's tough to do. But congratulations to all the teams that made it. Congratulations to all the teams that had a great season. I'm blessed to say that I had a team. I think you had the same thing, a division year where every team at least got a win in our team.
Yes.
So that's
unfortunately, Brushwood Broadview Heights.
the
not
bees.
The Bees had a tough season. We'll see what happens next year. But continue on with us. We will obviously cover the Wadsworth-Worcester game next week, and then we will continue to cover Division 1, Region 1, Division 2, Region 5, Division 2, Region 7, and Division 3,
Region 9 for Buckeye.
9, where Buckeye resides.
And Division 3, Region 12.
Yes, most certainly.
Yeah, so congratulations to all the teams that made it. It's been a great season. Week 10 in the books. We're done for the regular season. Now we move into the playoffs where anyone can win. A lot of good teams out there. Every team is good if you make the playoffs. I mean, that's pure and simple. So good luck to all the teams this Friday. We look forward to covering Wadsworth, going to Wadsworth, where Worcester will be. Go and follow at SOT Podcast for in-game updates, and go to sportsontappodcast.com after the game, probably around midnight, I'd say, for the sports story or the story from the game that Sean will cover. YouTube, Instagram, all that, Facebook. Follow us. All right. For Josh Jeffy, Sean Duffy, Ed Dick, I'm Rob Troutman. We're Sports on Tap. We'll see you later. Good luck, everyone.
Game
see ya.
on.